generic formula that we had for writing the nth root? Garrett? What was that sign called?
Radical.
Radical. Okay, so I have the radical sign. Good. Okay, so then when I'm rewriting these using the nth roots of a, I would rewrite it as and 3 on the outside. And we have one answer, and why do we have one answer? So if n is odd, I can only have one solution. Because a negative times a negative times a negative gives me a 3 negatives gives me a negative. But if I had an even number of negatives, like 4 of them, that would give me a positive.
Wait, is that only if the number is negative?
Or negative. What?
Is that only if the negative?
No.
Okay.
Because remember, a positive times a positive times a positive still has to give me a positive. So when n is odd, there's only one solution. So what would our solution for this be? What times itself 3 times gives us negative 27? This is what? 3. So negative 3 would be our one answer. Okay, what would this one be? How would I rewrite this one?
Radical 16.
Oh, you're gonna have one outside, 2 answers.
I have 2 answers because n is,
Positive.
well, n is it's positive, but it's even. So I can have a
Negative and a positive.
negative and a positive answer. So then what times itself 4 times will give us 16? 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 doesn't give me 16. 2. So it's a negative or positive 2. Questions on that? Okay. Then we moved on to example 2, which was actually solving them. So A, up here on the board, Jaden, does A have 1 or 2 answers? 1, because n is even or odd? N is odd, which means I have how many answers? 1, and then the sign on the inside tells me what it is. So is it positive or negative? Negative, and then what times itself 3 times gives me 8? 2. So this one, do I have 1 or 2 answers? 1, because n is odd. Okay, and this time on the inside, what times itself gives me 8 3 times? 2. But then on the outside, I have a negative, so it still actually is a negative 2. So it didn't make a difference on this one. Now on C, we have 6 to the 1/4. How do I rewrite that using a radical sign?
Radical is 4 is on the outside and 1 is on the inside. So
Okay,
it's
so we said 16 is on the inside,
then 4 on the outside.
4 goes on the outside.
The 1 goes back there, but it's still the same thing. So it's just
Right. So do I have, so n is even or odd? Even, so how many answers do I have? 2. Positive and negative. So what times itself 4 times gives me 16? 2. So then my answers are positive and negative 2. Right? Okay, so for D, how do I rewrite that one?
So negative 6. Radical 16.
So negative 16 goes on the inside and
4 on the outside and 1 on the inside.
4 goes on the outside. Okay, that's the part I need to make the correction of. Okay, so do I have 1 or 2 answers? 2. Okay. What times itself 4 times will give me negative 16? This is where I need to make the correction. Okay, so we said that there's no number that I can take times itself 4 times and get a negative, right? Because if I have 4 negatives, my answer is positive. If I have 4 positives, my answer is positive. So the answer is not no solution. It is no real
Numbers.
number.
Wait, so what's the symbol for number?
There is none. You have to write no real number.
So then,
So I need to clarify on this just a second. So the reason why it's no real number instead of no solution means that there's not an answer, right? No real numbers means there's not an actual real number. But if you remember last year when we talked about categorizing numbers, we talked about there's real numbers, there's rational numbers, there's irrational numbers. Remember those words?
Yeah.
And I told you that there's things called imaginary numbers. Remember that? This is an imaginary number. So there is an answer to this. It's just an imaginary number.
what is the
No real numbers is what our answer is going to be. It's an imaginary number.
So then, number 12 would be no type of no.
I know. That's why I'm making that correction now. Okay. So instead of no solution, we're going to write no real number.
So there's no more solution.
Not right now. If you get this, so if you get domain error in your calculator, it's no real number.
So what happens if you just get blind decimals?
That's a number.
Wait, so will it always just be that?
It's an irrational number.
Could you just tell us that they have no real numbers if it just has a negative?
When we're given this form, what is this form called again? Do you remember?
Wait. Rational exponent.
Exponential form. Okay, so this is written with an exponential form because I am given an exponent. Now my exponent is a fraction. Okay, so when we rewrite these,
16 on the inside.
16 goes on the inside,
4 on the outside and 3 on the inside.
4 goes on the outside. Now this is the correction I need to make. It doesn't go with the 16. It goes with everything.
Yeah, because then I was confused.
Yes.
That's all.
Okay, so it goes with everything because this quantity, so what's inside the parentheses, right? It means I take it times itself 3 times, right? Because that's what raised to the 3rd power means. So if I actually wrote this quantity out, it would be 16 4 times 16 4 times 16 4, right? Okay. Now this is also the same as if I wrote it in exponential form. It would also be 16 to the 1/4, right? 16 to the 1/4, 16 to the 1/4, right? So then when we have multiplication, what is the rule for my exponents? I add, so if I have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, what do you get? So that's how, and that's why it has to be the quantity raised to the 3rd power. So that is how it needs to be written. I made that mistake yesterday. Okay.
We have to write out 16.
No, you do not have to write out this bottom part that I wrote right now, like down there.
So I did
But
it
I was
right.
showing you why it is
What about
this.
the salt back?
What?
Let's get the salt.
I'll show you.
Do we have to?
Isn't that
Yes.
what it wanted us to do in 13? And,
Okay. So then what?
Isn't that what it wanted us to do in 13?
So then I'll go to your homework in just a second. That's why I'm going over these examples before we go over your assignments. So I'm going to give you time to fix them because I made that mistake. So then B, how would I rewrite this one correctly? 27 on the inside.
3 on the outside, and then parentheses
So 3 goes
right there.
here.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
Good parentheses.
My denominator. Remember your denominator goes here because that's n.
Yeah.
And now I have to have the parentheses and what's my numerator? 4. Okay, the way the book writes it, I believe, is A, N, and then M is the same as A, M over N. Right? Because A stayed the same, right? My 27 stayed inside. My N stayed the same, it's still 3. But now my numerator is the quantity that it is raised to. So that is N, essentially. Okay? Gotcha that? I will talk about that in just a little bit. Okay? Then we also did this example, I believe. Nope, we didn't do that example. We did the opposite though, didn't we? Okay, so like these ones. So please focus right here. Okay, so like this one, I need to, if I was going to write it using exponential form, how would I write it? To the 1/3, right? Because this technically is raised to the first power, but do you write it like that? No. Yes, Garrett.
So that's exponential form.
This is exponential form because I have an
Write it as a
exponent.
radical form. It's the
Okay, let's write number 4 as a radical form because we have a radical in it. Okay, so how do you write number 4 with radical form?
negative is equal
Radical.
to 3 on the inside right there.
3 right here.
Outside.
Okay,
And 2 parentheses 2.
good.
So that'd just be the same also if you still have the 2 left with the other that's more radical.
So like this one right here?
Yeah.
This is still radical form, yes, because it has the radical sign. How do I write number 5 using radical form?
9 on the inside and then 2. Yeah, that thing and then 2 and then parentheses 5.
Good. Everybody good with that? Okay. I want you to go through and fix